Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
My name's Lisa and I am codependent. And I promise everything that she said is true about my trip getting here and more, and you're going to get to hear about it later. The first thing I would like to do is to say thank you. Thank you to the committee for giving me this honor and this privilege to share my story with you, and that's what I consider it, is an honor and a privilege. I'd like to thank all of the attendees for being here because, frankly, we don't get to have a meeting without you. It just doesn't work real well. And welcome to our brand spanking new 6-hour newcomer. Bravo. I am a firm believer that the newcomer is a very important person in our meeting. I need to hear what newcomers have to say, and I don't ever want to forget that. I began my recovery on March 16th, 1989. I came into this program when I was 26 years old. I was a very broken woman, and the way that came about was a little bit sketchy at best. And in order to qualify myself as a codependent, I believe that it's important that you kind of know where I came from. I don't need to go into a lot of detail because I believe that when I tell you that I'm a codependent, you already know some things about me, right? You know, I had some problems with people, right? Not really sure which kind of problems, but you know I had some problems. You know, I probably bottomed out around those behaviors because I didn't come in here tightly wrapped and doing well, and I don't know too many people who did. And, you know, when I came in here, I was scared to death, and I didn't know what I was in for. I really didn't know. And so to qualify myself as a codependent, I believe it's important that you know just a little bit about my background. My father was abandoned when he was 1.5 years old by his mother and father, and he had 3 siblings. He was put in the foster care system. This would have been back in the 1930s and 40s, which many of you may know that was not a pretty sight or a pretty place for a young child. And from what I understand, because of the nature of my relationship with my father, I had to hear this from other people. I never heard it from him. He was very aloof, very closed mouth about it. Abuse started for him when he was 4 years old. My mother, on the other hand, was raised here, or we're not here. I was going to say here in Nevada, but we're not in Nevada, are we? My mother was raised in Nevada by 2 alcoholic parents. And in essence, she wasn't really raised by them either because the school system was so poor, and frankly still kind of is. She was sent to boarding school. And so she was raised by nuns. And so my mother and my father met, these 2 people who were not raised by their parents, and came together and had a family and became parents and attempted to create a family and raise children. And what came out of that, I believe, was 2 people who didn't know how to be parents, and they came together and they started being parents. And I believe that some dynamics took place there. I believe that there was a sense of perfectionism, that it had to be just so. So my mother wasn't allowed to work. She had to stay home. Everything had to be just perfect. It had to be just so. My father went to work. My mom stayed home. She took care of the kids, and that was great. I was the oldest. I had another sister behind me, and then my mother went on to lose 4 children. And this will become significant later on because, of course, I didn't learn this until later because of those delightful family secrets that happen. Anybody familiar with family secrets? Yeah. I have a delightful story about that. And so what I learned for myself, again, around my codependency, and I actually got in touch with some of this today during one of the wonderful workshops that you all offered, was my sister's only 11 months younger than I am. Get that, 11 months. Mom didn't know she could get pregnant while she was nursing. And so what happened is my mom kind of got taken away a little early because she had to take care of this baby right away. And there's more that goes with that, because over the years since then, my mother would say things to me like, well, you know, your sister needed more attention than you, so we just kind of let you be because you kind of had it all together and you knew what was going on and you were okay. No. And then a little bit later on, my mother told me that she liked me, but she didn't love me. That was a tough one. That was a real tough one. So the nature of that relationship was very, very clear to me. My mom was not real available for me, and she really believed that I was just fine and I could handle things on my own. And I'm here to tell you, I couldn't. I couldn't. And so the message for me was that I wasn't enough. I wasn't worth time, attention, love. I wasn't worth help. I wasn't worth someone being there for me. Okay. My father, on the other hand, as I alluded to earlier, he was very aloof, very closed off, and most of the things that I learned about him were either from my mother or other people in the family. So I really don't know that much about him, other than what I told you already. And so here I am, growing up in this family, and my parents started taking in foster children when I was about 5 years old. And we took in foster children probably for the next, I want to say 3 or 4 years, until at some point they took in 2 children that stayed with us, one of them for 9 years, and she became a sister of sorts. And something very profound happened for me at that point. She was only about 3 years older than me, and it was a very distinct, profound, defining moment in my life, because I no longer belonged to my family. I felt displaced. I don't know how to describe it to you. I don't know. You know, I've been in therapy. I've had lots of wonderful things told to me about it. The bottom line is I felt displaced. And I didn't even look like the rest of my family at this point. I'm tall, very light skinned with red hair. Everybody else was dark with dark hair. Even my foster sister fit in better than I did. My sponsor was kind enough to point that out to me one day, and I was like, oh, man. But it was the truth. It was the truth. And so from that moment on, when I was about 8 years old, I've been looking for a place to fit in. I've been looking for a place to belong, and I didn't have anywhere I belonged. And that was a driving motivation and force in all of my relationships growing up. So we fast forward a little, a year or 2, 3 later, and this foster sister abused me. There was sexual abuse involved. I don't believe that this is a testament to the foster care system or adoption or anything like that. Please don't take it as that. This was my personal experience, and this is what happened for me. And there was tremendous shame around this happening and not understanding and being very confused, and the whole same-sex thing wasn't really great either. And so, again, this set up another dynamic for me of caretaking, enabling, bonding with perpetrator, this kind of thing. We later found out that she had been raped by an uncle before she came to stay with us. She'd actually endured horrific abuse. And basically what she did to me was done to her. And so, you know, again, these were things that were shaping me and forming what happened for me. When I became a teenager, that was probably one of the most awkward times of my life. I can't even believe I survived middle school. Middle school was like, they should just ban middle school. I don't know if you can, but, you know, I see nodding heads, so I get it. You guys get this too. That was one of the most difficult times. Sometimes I can't even believe that I made it through there. And the way I found my way, and I found a sense of self-worth and self-esteem in sports and my intellect, because I was smart. And I was a good athlete because I was big, because, you know, girls aren't supposed to be big and, you know, muscular and be able to do stuff, and I was, so, you know, that worked out really well. So in my family, I was the smart one. My sister was the pretty one. And so if anybody told me that I was stupid, I'd kick their ass. If they told me I was ugly, I'd say I agree. I gotcha. And so to this day, that is still an issue. To this day, if I still struggle with that. But that was, again, this is the reality. This is what shaped me and formed who I am today. And so middle school was really difficult, but I survived because I had my intellect and I had sports. Moved into high school. Again, sports served me well. My intellect served me well. And things were not going well at home. I had been a very compliant child because I wanted somebody to notice me. I wanted to be okay, so I'm like doing really good, and I'm getting these good grades, and I'm earning awards in sports, and I'm going to state championships, and I'm doing all this great stuff. And then I got really, really sick. I got mono, which is a very typical teenage disease, not fun. And something happened. I broke inside, and I became very, very depressed. And that was about the time when I started drinking, when I started acting out promiscuously, and everything else started going downhill as well. My grades were kind of going down. There was more arguments. There was more defiance from me and my family. I believe that a child can only take so much of this iron fist. I think a child can only take so much, and that's how I saw it. And so at about 17, I ran away, and because I couldn't take it anymore at home. I was alluding to that controlling and that everything had to be just so, and I couldn't do it anymore. I just couldn't do it. And for the next 9 years from that point on, I went from relationship to relationship to relationship. There was always one on the back burner ready to go. And my drinking was increasing. When I was about 19 years old, 18, 19, I got pregnant. What a shock, right? You sleep around, this is what happens. And I believe that this was a defining moment in my codependency and in my drinking. And by the way, I really love that we get to talk about our other addictions and compulsions as they relate to our codependency, because quite frankly, I got tired of partying myself out. Well, you can only talk about this here. I already felt parted out. I really need to be whole. So I want to acknowledge that in CoDA, I get to be whole. Thank you. It really means a lot to me. And so my codependency expressed itself in this pregnancy was, I didn't want him to leave me. I didn't want him to think I was trying to trap him, so I chose to have an abortion. I bring that up as my personal experience. I realize that can be a very controversial issue. However, for me, it is a huge part of my codependency, my alcoholism, as well as my recovery. And so this was something that was very real for me, and it taps into my spirituality. So once I had that abortion to, keep the guy in my life, the guy du jour, that didn't really work out so well, because within a few months he was like, pfft, and he would say these horrible things. Oh, it was just awful. And my drinking got worse at that very moment too. Now, a few months after that, there was this article that happened in the newspaper, and it related to the faith that I was raised in. I was raised in a specific faith, and I choose not to mention it because I do believe that for some people this faith works just fine for them. But it was something that left me with the idea of a punishing God, and it wasn't a place that was safe, and it wasn't a loving place. And so this article came out in the paper, and how do you say? I was excommunicated. That's the bottom line. I was excommunicated from my church. And the message to me in that moment was, God turned his back on me. And so if God was going to turn his back on me, guess what I did? I turned my back on God. And I literally got to a place in my world where I said, there is no God. And I have to admit to you that is probably one of the lowest places I've ever gotten to in my life. I remember sitting in a college class, and they started talking about God and all these wonderful things, and I'm like, there is no God. And the whole room just went. I was like, oh crap, that's not good. And so again, things are going downhill, things are going real bad. I meet a wonderful man, and I decide that he's the one. So I got married. I actually got married to save the relationship. There's another codependent move for you. Because our relationship was starting to get a little shaky. We were very, it was only about he and I. He didn't want me talking to anybody else. He didn't want me to be around it, because he loved me. And he thought I was so special. He thought I was so special that nobody else was good enough to talk to me but him and his mom. I kid you not, this is the truth. And so, I hung out with him for a couple years, and I moved to Santa Cruz. I uprooted my whole life, and I went to go be with him, and then we were on the rocks, and it's like, let's get married, that'll solve everything. We were separated within 2 years. It did not solve anything. And one thing that I also noticed about the relationship I always chose men in my life, and they always had some sort of addictive compulsive behavior. And it was usually drugs and alcohol. One of them was a sex addict. And later on, as I entered recovery, I got to take a look at that and say, something must be wrong there. So I divorced him. And during our marriage, I had stopped drinking because I recognized that drinking was causing problems for me. So in essence, he married a dry drunk. How pretty is that? Not. I was a raving lunatic. I used to go off on rages on him. I don't even remember them. That's how bad they were. And so immediately once I got divorced, it's like, hey. So I went back to drinking and acting out the way I used to. And that didn't work so well. That didn't work very well at all. Eventually I had gotten into therapy because something was very, very wrong. And I actually did this in the face of a lot of opposition because the ex-husband, number one, and his mother, oh, God, sorry, and his mother were just livid that I went to therapy. You don't need that. You can talk to us. No, I can't. It's kind of the whole point. I know. Back then it made sense. Right now it's like, geez, Lisa, that was not a good move. And so when I was in therapy, she kind of mentioned on the slide the word codependent. And I was like, oh, what's that? And so CoDA may have been around at that point, but we didn't have much literature then, because that was back in the day. And so I was turned on to another book that most of us know, but because of the traditions, I will choose not to name that book. But what that book did for me, I can tell you, is it gave a name to what had been wrong with me my entire life. I knew that, even when I was little, I knew something was very, very wrong. And I could never put a name to it. I could never put my finger on it, but I knew there was something wrong. Finally, codependent. I'm codependent. I want to go shout it from the rooftops. I want to go tell my boss she's codependent. I want to go tell her lover and the other lover that he's codependent. You know, I mean, it was mind-blowing for me. Mind-blowing. So I find out I'm codependent. I do all the little checklists in the book, and I'm really codependent. Really codependent. And I said, okay, what do I do? Well, in that particular book, they only talk about another program for people who hang out with alcoholics. I went, okay. So I went to my therapist. What do you think? You think I should go to those meetings? And she's like, yeah. So I went to a meeting, and a woman came and talked with me afterwards, and she decided that I didn't belong there because I didn't have an active alcoholic in my life. Now, I have to tell you, in defense of that program, I have learned later that that was a complete and total lie, that I did have a place there. However, if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't be here today. It was because of this woman giving me this horrible misinformation that I went on the quest to find another place to belong. So there's another program for sex and love addicts. And they meet with you before you go to the meeting, and I understand why, because you know, it's pretty intense what goes on there. And so she talked to me, she says, you know, I think CoDA might be the place for you. I'm like, CoDA? What? CoDA? She says, well, CoDA believes that all addictions and compulsions come out of codependency. I went, that's my place. Sign me up. And so in Santa Cruz, California, I went to my first CoDA meeting on March 16th, 1989, and I came home. My people. I found my people. I found my place. You remember how I told you I was looking for somewhere to belong? I found the place to belong. I found it, and I remember sitting in there going, and this was, okay, back in the day again, so it would have been 89, so there were 30 to 40 people in a room every night. We had a meeting every night. And there was younger people, older people, men, women, we were all in there, and we're just trying to do this thing. And I'm sitting there, and I'm going, wow, there's no way I'm opening my mouth in this meeting and talking to anybody. I was not going to talk. There was just no way. And so somewhere in this meeting, I heard sponsor, I heard like talk to one person kind of thing, and I thought, okay, I'm not willing to talk to all y'all at one time, but I am willing to talk to one person, because what I knew is if I didn't connect with one person, I wasn't going to stay. And so the first lady, I walked up and I said, you know, because I had to rush up there because somebody else might grab her first and be her sponsor, right? So I'm rushing up there. I said, will you be my sponsor? And she's like, no. Now, okay, so how well do codependents take rejection? Not well. And this is how I know that there was a higher power working in my life, even though I didn't know it yet, because I still had that motivation. You guys, you hooked me. You hooked me. I wanted what was in that room. I wanted to belong. And so belonging meant I needed to find a sponsor. So I was still motivated to find somebody. So on day 9, don't know anything about this woman. I just heard her say her name because she was about to share. And her name echoed in my head. And it's like, she's the one I'm supposed to ask. So again, I run up there because, you know, somebody else is going to get her before I get there. And she said yes. And so I was like, great, now what? And so we arranged a lunch date, and I went to go and meet with her. And I'm sitting across from her, and, you know, we're just doing a little idle. And she says, so what brought you into CoDA? And now, I tended to be a very compliant, very kind of closed down person, and I would never have said this to anybody in the world, and I'm not even sure where it came from, but I looked at her and I said, why should I trust you? Yeah, I thought it was kind of gutsy myself. Because, I was raised to be very polite. Everybody else's feelings are more important. I was groomed to be a codependent, just groomed. And so, and she went, oh, right, I'm supposed to tell you about myself, and then you'll feel comfortable because you'll know that I belong here, and then you'll want to share your stuff too. And I'm like, okay. So she went on to tell me her story and why she joined CoDA, and it was pretty horrific. And though I was 26 and I think she was probably in her 40s, she had older kids like teenage and up, I related to what she had to say. And so I literally called her every day. This was before cell phones, so all we had was answering machines, and so the little light was always blinking on her machine when she came home, and she knew at least one of those blinks was me, maybe two, because that's how I was really that bad. I did not know how to live this life. I did not know how to deal with people. I kid you not when I say I have a people problem. I don't know how to do relationships with people. And when I came into this program, hopeless. If you looked at me sideways, or if you came in and slammed the door, if you yelled at me, I'm like, oh my God.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.
They yelled at me today. What do I do? And it was an amazing time. I can sit here and put myself down and say I was this horrible person, but the reality is that's who I was. And she hung in there with me. She never said, Lisa, you're just too sick. You got to find somebody else. She never turned her back on me. Get that, okay? Because my biggest fear, if you find out who I really am, you're gone. You're gone. And had a few experiences like that. So this was not far out of my realm. And so once I started working with her regularly, started doing the steps. Now you have to remember back in 1989, all we had was those little pamphlets, and we didn't even have all of those in Santa Cruz. We used whatever we could. We found whatever books we could. So we read some of those other authors that wrote about codependency. And that's how I did the steps. That's how I learned to work this program. I'm very grateful that we have the literature that we have today, and I've really enjoyed what that represents. The collective experience of other CoDA members. That's a beautiful thing. That is a beautiful thing. So I start working these steps, and I'm starting to get better. And, those first 3 months were a little rough because I was still drinking. Do you know how hard it is to work a 12-step program and drink alcoholically? Let me tell you, it doesn't work well. I only have one good drunk-a-log. I promise I won't tell it here, but it was kind of at the end, and I kind of went, okay, there's a real problem here. I remember going to my sponsor, my CoDA sponsor, and saying, do you think I should go to AA? She's like, yeah. And so 3 months later, I joined AA. And my gratitude for being in CoDA first and then joining AA is I would have never survived AA. You remember that people problem I told you about? Yeah, never would have happened. That 3 months in CoDA gave me the foundation I needed to deal with those alcoholics that used to be my problem, and now I'm one of them, right? And so you guys gave me tools. You gave me the ability to have a modicum of limits and boundaries and just a little touch of self-respect, so I didn't have to fall into some of the traps that a lot of new women and men, equal opportunity, fall into when we join Alcoholics Anonymous or some of the other substance abuse. So I would love to tell you that everything went really well and I never got in a bad relationship again and things are hunky-dory, but I can't tell you that. I'd be lying. I would be lying. About the 3-month mark, I went into treatment for codependency in Scotts Valley, California. They still had a treatment program then, and which was really awesome. Learned some really great stuff and came out of that. And probably within about 3 months, I was involved in a relationship with a gentleman who was in AA. And I thought he was this really great guy because, he's in AA and he's working the program and he's got this kid from a previous marriage. And I find out that it's not a previous marriage. He's still married. I didn't find that out till later because he kind of left that part out. Yeah. Does the term broken picker mean anything? I have a seriously broken picker. And so I got involved with this man. And even though I'd been in CoDA for a little bit by then, not even quite a year at that point, I'm thinking I'm doing okay. I'm thinking, yeah, I see him for who he is. No, I did not. The warning signs were there. The warning signs were there, and I overlooked them. I did that thing that I do where I just, you just kind of shut up and say, my love will save him. My love will save him. He'll be okay. And so gosh, got pregnant, had a kid, whom I adore, by the way. I have 3 sons now. And we decided getting married was the next right thing to do. So we did, because that's what you do. You marry the man that you have the kid with. And something happened the night of our marriage. I'm not sure how to describe it, but it's like his ability to be in recovery turned off. He completely walked away and turned away from his recovery. Mine kind of turned up because I was like, oh crap, what did I do? And it was a downhill. It was a downhill from that moment. We used to be able to talk about recovery terms that then became psychobabble. Don't spout that psychobabble at me. And he became very verbally abusive. Thank you, God, not physically abusive, because I probably wouldn't be here. I'd be in jail. That's the truth. And so I'm in the program. I'm not able to go to meetings as often as I would like because I've got a child now. I've got another one on the way. In Santa Cruz, you have to be 16 or older to go to meetings. Had no support to get to meetings. It was a crazy time. And so I reached out to whatever I could, wherever I could, to get support. And my world fell apart. And at some point, I thought that suicide was the only way out. And so, gosh, I'm thinking I was about 5 years in CoDA, and it wasn't about picking up a drink. It wasn't about any of those other things. It was about, this is the only thing I know to do. And so I made a suicide attempt. Wound up in the mental health unit for 11 days. Well, there's a funny story that goes with this. In the mental health unit in Santa Cruz, they have 2 sides. They have the whacked out side, you know, the ones who are, yeah, okay, you get that. Then there's the people like me that are just in because we're a little depressed, not doing good, maybe, you know, minor suicide attempt. Well, guess which side they were remodeling that week? Guess which side Lisa wound up on? You had guys coming up to the counter, just take me down, you know, and, you know, you see these 2 guys, or it was actually 2 guys in white, and they, boom, and he's on the ground, and you're going, oh my God. So I'm like this. That was my first week. So the reason I tell you that story, part of it is funny, and I can see the humor in it now, but the reality is that it was a great motivator never to go there again. And so I learned a really valuable lesson, and I decided that it just wasn't worth going down that path. And so while I was in that hospital, the true nature of the ex-husband came out in front of the doctor. And he became very verbally violent and abusive and rather intimidating physically. And so I didn't go home right away. And then when I did go home, it was because he left. He didn't get his way. He wanted me to come home and blah, blah, blah. So that was a mess. Now, again, I would like to tell you that everything went really well and I never made a poor choice again. And I can't tell you that either. I'm sorry. I had one more to go. That picker was really broken. So I got involved with a gentleman who was in AA, and I got pregnant. What can I tell you? I got pregnant. Yes, I've been called fertile myrtle. Sorry. That's the way it is. And about 2 months into the pregnancy, he went back to using heroin. I didn't know it because I only knew about alcoholics. I didn't know about heroin addicts. And so I found out he'd been using heroin, and he went away. I said, you got to go. I can't have you in my life. And I hit the lowest emotional bottom I've ever hit in this program. And I remember I had turned my back on everything that I had believed to be right and true and good in my life. And on that day when he called me and said that he'd been shooting heroin, it was like just everything crashed around me, and I went, you know what, I'm done. I'm done with this. I am not going down this path again. 6 weeks later, I got a phone call from his mother, whom I'd never met. They found him dead. He OD'd on heroin. Found him in a mausoleum bathroom. And that was the end. That was the end for me of trusting my picker that was very broken. And I made a commitment that I was going to stay out of a relationship no matter what. No matter what it took, I was staying out of a relationship. I need to interrupt myself for a minute. How much time do I have left? Anybody know? I meant to ask for help, but dang. 10 minutes. 10 minutes? I've got 10 minutes. I'm going to do the Reader's Digest version. So, for the next 3 years, I stay out of a relationship. I do the most intense work around my spirituality that I've ever done. I do a major 4th and 5th step inventory around my sexual behavior. And out of that comes this deepening of my relationship with my higher power, whom I call God. And what came out of that was recognizing that I had a difficult time allowing love in and acknowledging that people loved me. And I remember one night just curled up in a ball trying to make this list of people who loved me and just letting it in. And I'm just weeping and I'm sobbing and I'm realizing, you know what, there is love out there. It doesn't have to be like I've been making it be. And so then I came up with this prayer because I was attracted to all these different men that I was meeting, right? And obviously I have this broken picker, right? So my prayer is, God, please reveal the true nature of this man to me because my past choices haven't been so great. And so every time I prayed that prayer, I found out that these men that I was attracted to were drinking, getting in barroom brawls, running from the cops. They were all the same kind that I'd been picking. And I'm like, thank you, God. Thank you, God, that I get to have an answer to this prayer. And it was a heartfelt prayer, and it was a real prayer. And so in 1999, I prayed this prayer about a man, and he'd been in the same job for 25 years. He did his laundry every Sunday. Wow. Was this different or what? And I just kept waiting. I just kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. You know, okay, what's really wrong with him? Now, he was in the program. He'd been in the program for a little bit. He was in AA. But I wasn't getting that same kind of stuff that I've been getting with the other guys that I've been talking about. I went, wow, okay. So eventually we became a couple. We got married. He adopted my youngest son, whose father had died. And we have this incredible life in Las Vegas right now. And now I get to tell you things have been really good for 13 years. Yes. And that is a personal record for me because I couldn't stay married longer than like 3. So it's really miraculous. But what I want you to know is that we've had to go through some difficult times. In 2006, my husband was the victim of a crime. A gentleman thought that my husband was the one who had shot up his house, and he tried to stop him with his car. My husband was on a motorcycle. And 9 weeks later, he lost his leg. They had to amputate. That same year, one of my sons became very sick, missed his entire freshman year of high school, and eventually went to go back and live with his father, who continued to drink, and that was a whole nother oof. And then somewhere in between 2006, 2007, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, which was absolutely devastating for me because, as you can kind of see, I'm a little bit high energy and enthusiastic, and I like to go, 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 and I didn't get to go, go, go anymore. And so by 2008, I had to stop working. I was not capable of working anymore. And I was at a loss. My whole world crumbled. I didn't even realize that it had happened, but everything that I was, everything that defined who I am was caught up in my work. And suddenly I'm not bringing home a paycheck. And I couldn't qualify for disability right away. And so what I did was I said, okay, if I focus on what I can't do, I'm in trouble. Because that just leads me down, down, down. So I said, okay, God, what can I do? And I thought, CoDA service. So I thought, what kind of CoDA service I could do? Because physically I was not well. I couldn't get out of the house. I couldn't do a lot of things. Well, why don't we go on the CoDA.org website and look up service opportunities at the world level? It's like, okay, so I did. And I found a service position that I could do. It was mostly email. I could be at home, didn't have to go anywhere, didn't have to do anything. That changed quickly because you guys sucked me in. Anyway, so I started working on the outreach committee, and I was doing 12-step work. I was answering emails from people literally all over the world. And my health was still declining, still declining. Recently, I've had some changes in my health, and I'm doing better. I have my energy back. I'm not sick all the time. It was an answer to prayer. And so service has been a huge part of me remaining healthy up here. It gave me a sense of purpose because I felt like my purpose had been ripped out from under me. As it was alluded to earlier, that the diamond lane of recovery, I'm not sure about that whole diamond lane thing. But what I can tell you is that service is a tremendous opportunity to learn and to grow. Because, you know, some of these people that I work with in service, I might not hang around with otherwise. They wouldn't be my first choice of people to go have lunch with. But you know what? Because of these principles that we have, I get to set aside that personality. And I get to say, okay, we have this common purpose here. We're working towards whatever it is. With outreach, it was answering emails. With issues mediation, we were working on disputes. Right now, I really hesitate to say it out loud, but it's really the truth. I serve on the board of trustees for Codependence Anonymous, Incorporated. I want to tell you that in 2010, I stood in front of all the people I know and I said, you could not pay me to serve on the CoDA board. You could not pay me. Didn't want it, didn't want nothing to do with it. And then last year, look where I am. And they're not paying me. And what I want you to know, it has been the most incredible, awesome, spiritual experience I have had in all my years of recovery. I have gotten to know people from all over the world. I have a CoDA family that's all over the world. I had the opportunity to go to Mexico and help support their growing CoDA community. They have 400 meetings with no structure. Not anymore. They have a new CoDA board. They have all these amazing things. That's what gets to happen. That's what gets to happen. And I'm honored and privileged that I get to have that opportunity. How many more minutes do I have? Don't tempt me. She said I could go forever, but I won't. Can I just have like 3 more minutes? Okay. I want to tell you about my experience getting here. Jean-Noel talked about it a little bit. I had a plan. I had a plan how I was going to get here. Had it all planned out. Had the map planned out, had the car planned out, had everything planned out. And before I left, I had this notion, why don't I ask my husband to map out an alternate route for me? Because maybe he'll know something better than I do. Well, he didn't that time. But, you know, I had this alternate route. So when I leave at 7 in the morning, I've got these 2 routes. And as she said, I go to leave, tanker truck goes over, they shut down the whole freeway. It's like, great, I've got another plan. So I start going the other plan. My car starts pouring gas out the bottom. The tow truck driver calls it a carbecue. Not a barbecue, a carbecue. I was that close to being a carbecue. Now the beauty of this is that I'm in between 2 cities at this point, and the only thing that I just happened to come up on is a casino. So I pull into the casino, I see the gas, I turn it off, I'm like, oh my God. And so the tow truck driver comes and I tell him I'm having this crappy day, and he looks at me and he says, hey, your day's just improved, I'm here. I'm like, wow. Now, a little bit before that, I don't know if you guys have this issue with tow trucks out here, but in Vegas, they're notoriously late. If they say they're going to be an hour, it's 2 hours, right? So they said an hour and 20 minutes, I think no big deal. I run in, I get a little cup of coffee, try to arrange a rental car, get some fruit. As soon as they bring the fruit, the guy showed up 40 minutes early. So I'm sitting there going, gotta go. I go to get in line. I didn't have time I was going to be in trouble because I needed to be out at my car. And this man that I'd been talking with a little bit and his teenage son walked over and said, give me your check, I'll pay your check. Go out to your car. That's what I did. I started crying. I'm like, people don't do this for me. I do that for them. And so I'm, hobbling out to my car, and I get to the tow truck driver. He makes it all happy. I get in the truck, and he says, there's this kid running across the parking lot. Looks like he's coming for you. He's got my fruit and my coffee. Yeah, it was like that. It was like that. And so I'm driving on so then, I get everything all arranged. I get in the truck or the car, and I'm driving here, and I'm on roads that I don't know. And I'd been listening to a song in the other car because, I had my music all mapped out for the car. But I couldn't listen to that music in the rental car because they didn't have the little thingy to plug in so I could listen to. Yeah, it was a mess. But there was this one song that I was listening to, and a couple of the words went, hold on to me, don't let me lose my way. And I literally used those words as a prayer the entire 5-hour drive on roads that I don't know. And I'm going down in these dips. Those, I don't know if y'all know those dips. Now, some of them are really nice and tiny and you can still see everything, but then some of them are so low that I can't see what's on the other side. Do you know how uncomfortable that is? And you know what? For me, it was a metaphor for my recovery and a metaphor for those valleys that I've been in, like when my husband was in the hospital and when I got really sick. Because I'd be down in that dip. I'm at the lowest point, and I can't see anything on the other side. And I'm going, okay, God, okay. And I slowed down, but I still made it up over the other side. And it became a spiritual journey to get here yesterday. It was truly a spiritual journey. And I watched the most amazing things happen over that entire day. A 5-hour trip turned into a 10-hour day, but I got here. And I wouldn't have it any other way. I am exceedingly honored and blessed to be here. And I hope that something that I've said has touched you and makes a difference and lets you know that there is a higher power. There is a God. There is. And I have a new CoDA family. Thank you. I love you. Mwah!
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst and one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, out, in, up, down. And then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.